I didn't expect that question out of the gate, to be honest with you, because I said to myself, the way I know Chris and the pictures that I see out there, all pumped up and greased up and all that stuff, I say he's going to ask me, how does he get a better six-pack? Or how does he build up his guns better? How can he compete in the Arnold Classic Bodybuilding Championships in Columbus, Ohio, or something like that?
50 plus category, Gov, 50 plus category. Give me a little something.
Well, I don't want to really, to be honest with you, get involved in this political stuff because I'm very good in just keeping focused on the goals. And the goals are my environmental goals, to make this a cleaner world and to make it a safer world and to go and get rid of pollution. That's what I'm, fighting. And right now, the immediate danger is, of course, the coronavirus, as you, said so eloquently earlier. It is on the rise, and I think it is very important that we communicate as effectively as possible, because I think that the communication is the key to all of this. If it is a coronavirus issue or if it is the environmental issue, I think by just calling people that are not getting vaccinated idiots or losers, or they're stuck in the past, or they're not believing in the science and all this stuff, I don't believe in that, because I think that's not the way we win them over. I think what we have to do is we have to just figure out various different ways and maybe study what other countries do in order to get a higher rate of vaccinations going or stuff. And the same is also with the environmental issue. I think we should not attack the other side. I think that we should kind of figure out how to communicate better to bring them in. That is what the key thing here is. And, this goes back to my bodybuilding days. As long as we always said bodybuilding, no one was interested. But as soon as we started talking about weight resistance training and progressive weight resistance training, everyone said, oh, that sounds really interesting. And we started switching the communication. And I think the same thing is with all of those subjects. It's communication, communication, communication.
All right, so let's talk about that. We have some time tonight, and I appreciate you giving us the time. Let's start, first of all, with what we're getting wrong in the messaging level when it comes to making ourselves healthier with coronavirus. I hear you about saying, don't denigrate people who are worried about taking it. But what about the group where it's political for them, where they believe they're showing strength by not taking the vaccine because the vaccine is a function of some bad political game for them? What do you say to them?
Well, Chris, people today make everything political. And I think that we should not play along with that. I think we should step out of that. Because I tell you, when I one time announced that I am going to eat less meat, because the doctor told me that it is healthier to eat more kind of vegan type of vegetarian type of foods, they said, oh, you're becoming a girly man now, Arnold. I mean, you're becoming more a Democrat, a liberal and stuff like that. So I think that we just have to not answer that. And I think the key thing is that we just keep communicating the right way and to just let the people know that, look, vaccination is good. I think it is very important that everyone gets vaccinated. I understand that you don't believe in it, but maybe there's something that we can convince you to believe in it. And I think it doesn't have that much to do with the fact that we are, that they don't believe in the science. A lot of times it has to do also with the fact that they don't believe in government. And there's a reason for that, because let's be honest, I mean, government has screwed up so many things in the past that they feel like this is one of the many screw-ups. I don't trust it. So there's a distrust in government.
What do you say when people come forward and say to you, hey, what do you think about our democracy? Do you think that we can trust the elections anymore? I mean, that has also suffered because of messaging. What do you say to people? I mean, you've spoken about this. People should know your history by now. But coming from Austria and your embrace of democracy and the opportunities and the ability to have free and fair elections, the ability to become part of them yourself, we're all part of your dream that make you a unique part of the American experience. Now that's being questioned about whether people can trust. What do you say?
Well, I made it very clear since the election that I believe in the election. And I believe that everyone should go out and vote. I think that it was a fair election, and President Biden is the president, and it's end of story. And then, that's the way the chips fell, whatever the reasons are for that, but that's the way the chips fell. And I think that we should now support the president 100% and do everything that we can in order to make him successful, because if he is successful, the nation is successful, and we can move forward. There's a lot of issues that need to be addressed right now rather than worrying about the election or any of the results and going back and going over that whole thing over and over. I think we should really look at how do we stay the #1 country in the world? Because I'm concerned that we're going to lose our competitive edge if we keep fighting, doing the infighting, blacks against whites and whites against Asians and blacks against Asians and Hispanics against this and Democrats against Republicans. There's so much infighting going on. I think what we should do is really concentrate on making this a fair country and a great country. Fair country meaning there's equality in voting, equality in opportunities, so that no matter what race you're from or what religion you're from, that you can be successful in America. I had the joy of really enjoying this great success in America because of America, and I want everyone to have that same chance.
Where do you think the country is now in terms of your experience here and seeing where we are with the level of dialogue and level of commitment to the national cause?
I think that it is very important that we stay focused and not do this little kind of this arguments and attacking each other. I think it is extremely important that we think of the big picture. I mean, there's world powers out there, China, for instance. They keep marching forward according to their 100-year plan. They don't stop. They keep marching, and they've been online. They have been successful so far because of that. And I think we have to do the same thing. We have to create a vision together, Democrats and Republicans, and say this is where we want to be with energy. This is where we want to be with immigration. This is where we want to be with getting rid of the debt, the national debt. This is where we want to be with growth of the economy and with the environment and all of those kind of issues. We got to come together and fight those battles together, because that's when we are the most successful.
So let's do this. Let's take a break. When we come back, let's talk about